pretty incredible. Twitter porn bots are actually a form of speech suppression, and I'll explain that, or I'll get Zach Voorhees to explain that. I think I'm getting the name wrong. Isn't that Jason? Anyway, he's the former Google engineer who got fired. He explains why there's speech suppression, and he also talks about the removal of likes and why that's actually speech suppression. Actually, it gives the powers that be the power to inflate whatever they want to inflate without any kind of real oversight, because you can't audit it anymore. Very interesting and diabolical, right? Diabolical. 15 bills in 14 weeks, a very productive minority government, but it just because they get a lot done doesn't mean the things that they're doing are beneficial for the country at all, right? Letters to the Prime Minister. Oh my gosh. It seems like it was for a school project, if the letter's real at all, which I highly, highly doubt. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we are going to be talking about speech laws and Bill C-59 and 63. But there's a lot of memes and a lot of political cartoons. I like memes and political cartoons because they say a lot without a lot of words. And this one is, I think it's an old one. I think I've probably seen something like this before, but it's the Liberal cruise ship and it's sinking, and you've got the cabinet ministers at the front there, watching everything kind of sink, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's accurate. Apropos, the sun is setting on the Trudeau regime, although the WEF thing, that's a bigger monster and something we definitely need to slay. The Euro 24 is really, really big. Anybody like soccer, right? They're using the Great Reset logo. Do you see that? Right? It's bread and circuses. That's essentially what we're getting to distract us from the wholesale destruction of the Western society that we took for granted, I think maybe. And so on the left, you've got the Euro 24 in Germany, and you can see the rainbow, right? And then on the right, you've got the Great Reset logo. And Deere says the emblem for the Euro footy competition is the globalist symbol. So bread and circuses, everyone. They're distracting you, and they're paying handsomely for it. And why don't you just use the Build Back Better slogan, right? Everybody likes that. And use the rainbows too. Why not? They're not using Build Back Better. I'm just saying they like to signal. They like to have all of their symbology front and center. They love it. They love it. Calgary Chamber is responding to Bill C-59. And they say, today, Bill C-59 is expected to receive royal assent. We reiterate our concern that these changes will hamstring businesses of all sizes and sectors and work at cross purposes with Canada's climate goals. Read our full statement. So link is in the description if you're interested. The whole point is to do that, is to hamstring oil and gas, is to hamstring all of those things so Canada is poorer and not able to leverage our riches to benefit our country, right? Unless we're sending it to Ukraine, and by Ukraine, I mean laundering it back to our politicians, they're not interested. They're not interested in spending money on Canadians in Canada. Danielle Smith is responding to this. She says, my full statement on Ottawa's illegal Bill C-59, along with Energy and Minerals Minister Brian John, and Environment and Protected Area Minister Rebecca Schultz, the federal Liberal and NDP coalition has passed draconian legislation that will irreparably harm Canadians' ability to hear the truth about energy industry and Alberta's success in reducing global emissions. Alberta is a global leader in the complex effort to reduce emissions from our energy industry while delivering the resources our nation and the world need to live and thrive. We need a lucid partner in Ottawa that is willing to work with us and not demonize one of Canada's largest employers and industries. Bill C-59, when it receives royal assent, will prevent private entities from sharing useful and evidence-based information that happens to oppose the extreme and untruthful oil and gas narrative of the federal NDP and Liberals. This is being done to intentionally intimidate boards and shareholders, silence debate, and amplify the voices of those who oppose Canada's world-leading energy industry. Indeed, it would appear to be part of an agenda to create chaos and uncertainty for energy investors for the purpose of phasing out the energy industry altogether. Ironically, this kind of absurd authoritarian censorship will only work to stifle many billions in investment in emissions-reducing technologies, the very technologies the world needs to reduce emissions while avoiding energy poverty for billions around the world. I'll just pause here really quick. I hate the fact that Danielle Smith plays the carbon game. Carbon taxes, carbon reduction in emissions, all of that stuff, bunk, nonsense. It is It is pseudoscience of the worst kind. These people are grifting liars. They're stealing our tax dollars, using climate change as a justification, and we should put an end to it. We don't need to have any emission-reducing technologies. We don't need to do anything other than keep our environment clean. You shouldn't dump poisons into the water. You shouldn't spray poisons into the air. You shouldn't microwave the air in order to create weather. You shouldn't do a whole bunch of these things that we are doing. We should stop those things. But cars and engines and diesel and all of the rest of it, it's bunk. They're liars. And we need people brave enough to call this crap out. Danielle Smith, disappointing. Okay, back to this. Danielle Smith continues. We're already seeing the NDP Liberal Coalition plan play out as organized like Pathways Alliance and the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers are making difficult decisions to remove websites, reduce available information, and cease advertising out of fear that if they do not comply with the narrative of eco-extremists like Minister Galbo and Jagmeet Singh, their companies will face tens of millions in dollars in penalties. This is a direct consequence of the new legislation and is not related to the truth and accuracy of our environmental communications. We have won in court before against this lawless government, and we will win again if needed. Alberta's government is actively exploring the use of every legal option, including a constitutional challenge or the use of Alberta's sovereignty within a United Canada Act to protect the free speech rights of Alberta workers, leaders, and companies in our world-class energy sector. We will continue to relentlessly defend our province, its people, their free speech rights, and their livelihoods without pause or apology, excuse me. And I mean, a little bit, I guess, maybe, kind of half-heartedly defending if you totally sell people out and say, yeah, we're reducing emissions. Like, the second you play the carbon game, you're going to lose because it's never going to be enough. It's never going to be enough for these people, right? Any use of carbon to do anything that's, beneficial to humans is detrimental to humans, actually, because you're not fixing the climate change issue, which is 100 years out, which is bunk. Okay, it's bunk. It's always 10 years away and it's never happened. Keith, and the changes in weather that we're seeing are a direct result of the spraying into the skies that the powers that be are doing. You can look up and see it, really, honestly. Keith is responding to Eco Justice. Eco Justice says, good news. Bill C-59 just passed, tightening greenwashing rules to better protect consumers and genuinely green businesses by requiring companies to back up their environmental claims. The impacts are already being felt. Learn more here. And this says Bill C-59 just passed. Pathways Alliance coalition of big Canadian oil sands companies. Oh, I thought I paused that. The Pathways Alliance, a coalition of big Canadian oil sands companies under investigation for greenwashing, has silenced its website and social media accounts. So they successfully got a business with legislation, like with legislative changes that are scary enough that make them unsure about their position, so they have to remove speech, and these people are celebrating censoring these people, right? And like that's crazy. That's not a win. Like you haven't won the argument. You've just silenced people you disagree with huge monetary fines as the penalty. They're correct, you're wrong, but they're silenced, right? Gov.exe says Steve McKinnon says he's extremely eager to move forward with Bill C-63 so the government has the power to punish people for online hate, while telling Canadians we don't have the right to know who's been colluding with foreign entities to undermine our democracy. Do you think a government suspected of treasonous activity should be passing laws? No, of course not. No. And it's honestly very offensive what this government is doing. They should be arrested. Here we go.
As you know, often allocate time in the House. We have lots of time for debate. I could give you statistics on various bills. But online harms, the clock simply ran out without us allocating time, and we were unable to get that to committee.
How come you didn't,
this
is your government's answer to the rise in hate. You've been promising it since 2019. The minister says it's going to take a while to set up that regulator. Why not prioritize it to actually make it a reality?
I'm afraid that's a question you'll have to ask Mr. Poilievre, why his party is unable to commit to a proper debate, committee, witnesses, and moving that bill along. We are extremely eager to move C-63 into committee, hear from Canadians, and get it off to the Senate.
But it only got debated in June. You tabled it. It was tabled in February, second reading June. Why didn't you put it on the paper ahead of time?
Well, as I just laid out for you, 15 bills in 14 weeks is a pretty productive minority parliament.
If it was productive, but you were saying that it's the Conservatives' fault for holding things up, which is it?
It was both.
Checkmate. Oh, it was both. Yeah, it was super productive, but the Conservatives held things up to cause the super productivity. Yeah, held things up a lot. Senator Husaka says Justin Trudeau and the Liberals only ever do the right thing when they're faced with being bounced from office. They were quick to seize bank accounts of Canadians who donated to a protest against their government, but they're not even asking questions about who's funding the pro-Hamas university encampments and terrorizing Jewish Canadians. That's because it's just like the railroad blockades, Black Lives Matter, tossing statues and removing Canadian culture. This is the next evolution of that paid for protest that has been authorized by the Canadian, sanctioned by the Canadian government. Sanctioned because police aren't allowed to do a damn thing about it. They can stand there and watch, and that's it. And they know it. So, like, this is, it's annoying to me that people have not realized that it's the same thing, right? When you talk to pundits and things like that, they're still playing the Gaza-Israel game. That's another wedge. And this whole Palestinians, destroying neighborhoods and things like that, it is to foster hate and drive the wedge. And nobody is calling out this government. Like, you can't do, if I'm a Greek person and I'm, I leave the Danforth and go into another community and I bother people there. I start, defacing property. I start, making lots of noise and blah, 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 blah. There's noise bylaws. Like if I'm defacing property, I can get ticketed, fined, all sorts of things. They're not doing any of those things. They don't do anything like enforce the basic laws when there's protesters who they have to look past, right? Like the pro-Palestinian protesters, right? But if it's people waving Canadian flags, then all of a sudden, if you're jaywalking, if you're not standing exactly where the officer says, even if you're on public property everywhere, they'll arrest you and say that you were resisting arrest and all sorts of crazy stuff. They'll bring horses out and trample you, right? So like, it is absolutely bonkers what's going on, and people don't see it. And they have to be looking past it because it's very, very obvious. Anyway, Husaka says, I'll take no lectures from anyone in the Trudeau government on this. Time to pack them up and shut them down. I think that we can have all Canadians be assured that you will be safe in Canada and lawlessness will be met with arrests, tickets, fines, things like that. That would be much better than Jewish Canadians, you're safe, don't worry. Islamic Canadians, Arabian Canadians, whoever it is, Middle Eastern Canadians, you're safe, don't worry. That's pandering and doesn't make anybody safe. It wedges people. It drives people into 2 or 3 or whatever camps. Like you're either Jewish or you're Islamic or you're not, right? 3 camps, right? And you've got these citizens, 2 legs better, right? 4 legs good, 2 legs better, right? And so we're all subject to this elevation of status through, victimhood, right? And it's wrong. We should all be safe in our country. We should not tolerate lawlessness, period. Shut down lawless protests. Shut down people who are doing graffiti, et cetera, et cetera. Shut down people who are disruptive. That includes people who are praying in the middle of the street. We don't do that here, right? Like, the whole thing is madness. Here is Zach. I was right. Zach Voorhees. I was like, man, I'm talking about Jason. This guy's talking about Twitter bots. And the second part is even more interesting because he's saying that because they've taken away the likes on Twitter, they can artificially inflate anything by giving it a ton of likes and you can't audit it. It's not publicly auditable. Yeah, he makes a great point. Great point. Here's Zach Voorhees.
Right now, it seems that the way
too fast. Sorry, everyone. Too fast. Here we go. Back to right. Try that again.
Right now, it seems that the way that they try to censor this information is, well, at least on Twitter, there's a porn bot problem, and that bot, it's so bad, right? And so people are like, well, why is this happening? Like, why are they posting pornography on my thread? The reason why they're doing that is because a lot of these countries have child safety laws that prevent them from seeing pornography. And so when you see a tweet thread getting hit with pornography, what that's doing is that's triggering the muting of that entire conversation so that it can't go viral in countries outside of the United States. Yeah.
Interesting. I did not think of it that way.
Yeah, that's why they have those porn bots. And that's the reason why Elon Musk is like, well, we're going to allow pornography on the site. Now it makes it easier for the intelligence agencies to sync any topic that they want. And what's really interesting, and by the way, I do think that Elon Musk is controlled opposition. Otherwise, he'd be dead right now. He's now hiding all the likes. And the problem with that...
I'm not a fan of that.
No. And like, look, like it's a little bit dangerous to like something, sure, and there is an argument to be made that it is safer for users not to have their likes be registered. But what it also does is it also prevents us from auditing whether someone's like count is legitimate or whether it's being driven by a bot farm that is being allowed by Twitter to operate in order to pump up the narrative. It's like right after these likes went private, there's this very attractive woman that dropped the N-word on a thread, and then it went viral, right? And it's like, who are all these people liking this, right? We don't know, right? It's unauditable. We don't know whether they're real, whether they're bots, whether they're functionaries of the intelligence services. It's just a bunch of mystery algo boosting that's happening.
Well, funnily enough, this happened with YouTube. It was during the pandemic, because I saw it so clearly. So many of the official mainstream media reporting platforms were getting horrifically ratioed. You're talking 150,000 views and like 200 likes and 25,000 dislikes. The ratio was just every single time. And that's when they got rid of the likes on YouTube. Now, I can't say definitively, but I'm pretty suspicious of the fact that they wanted to try and stop people from seeing just how much of a difference of opinion there really was in official narratives. And I wonder if this might be the same case with X and trying to reduce the optics of disagreements on controversial issues and things like that.
Yeah, very, very plausible, and scary. Here's True North, and they say, Prime Minister Trudeau, it's extremely important that journalists still have the support and ability to challenge authorities, to challenge all politicians and what they say, and make sure that our democracy remains robust. He's lying. He's gaslighting people. I'm not going to play Trudeau because I can't stand the guy, but that's the kind of stuff he's saying on the backdrop of trying to censor oil and gas companies from reporting truthfully about their product, on the back of trying to pass Bill C-63, and I think that they're going to get it passed unless the government falls. And if Chinese treason, MPs tied to actual treason, is not enough to drop this government, I don't know what will. I don't know. I mean, we're likely to get a Trudeau majority in the next election because apparently nothing matters. Apparently nobody cares about anything, right? Nothing. Treason? Oh, you probably care about treason now, right? Yes, I care about treason. They're going after this truck. This is a Rebel News truck with anti-Muslim messaging registered to Rebel News Network. Rebel News owner says truck belongs to the organization, but the ad was created by a third party. We're just renting it out. They were like, I want to play a video. And I was like, it's X amount of dollars to play any video you want. And they gave me the X amount of dollars. And I'm not going to give you their contact. Ha! So there you go. Brian Lilly says, let's get real. The van circling Toronto is not a hate crime. That Toronto police were so quick to rush to an investigation while ignoring what's been happening on our streets for months is disgusting. The protests that have been happening on our streets have been sanctioned because they cause division. They cause division because you become emotionally invested. You say, look what's happening to those poor, insert your victim here, Gazans, Israelis, whoever, Ukrainians, whoever you want to be the victim. But all in this case, it's Gazans or Ukrainians. It's Gazans, Palestinians, right? Or Israelis. Honestly, and like having the wholesale invasion of Canada on full display. And the problem is, that's racist. We're investigating the person who took the video and displayed it in this easily consumable, digestible medium, right? How dare you point out our faults, right? How dare you point out how much this is changing the country, because it is changing the country. Ezra Levent says, Toronto police investigate Rebel News for alleged hate crime, but it's not a hate crime, but they're going to make it a hate crime. Honestly, here is the letter, Penny's letter. And Penny's letter is supposedly a grade 9 girl wrote a letter to Justin Trudeau praising his free food program and saying, please invest in schools like you promised. Honestly. And so Justin Trudeau responds to this as if it's a real letter. There's a lot of pushback, people saying this is done by a PR, like this is done, cooked up by liberal spin doctors and things like that. I think it reads to me like somebody had a classroom discussion and then they were tasked with write a letter to the Prime Minister about the discussion we just had and about like your position on the discussion we just had. Tell him something, blow some sunshine up his ass, and then talk about, we want you to do the school lunch program. That's how this reads to me. Okay. And I've worked in schools. I've certainly seen that. It's very, very indoctrinating in schools. Anyway, here's the letter. This is from Penny, totally legit grade 9 student, no coaching at all. Definitely didn't have any kind of samples on the board or anything like that. Here's the letter. I'm Penny. I go to Northumberland Regional High School, and my friends go to the free lunch program occasionally, and it really helps them. And when they need a healthy, delicious, and free meal. I'm in grade 9, and I can really see the positive impact this program has had on my friends and the students here. This program is extremely important for a variety of reasons. Firstly, it provides easy access to food, something many students need. We need food to learn and get through the day properly as well. Some kids don't have access to healthy food either, and the program provides that. These are all reasons to invest in this. That's a poorly written paragraph. I mean, she says firstly, and then doesn't follow up with a secondly. And has it's not structured very well. Penny needs to do a bit more work on the English. Anyway, third paragraph. We ask your government. That's the other thing that made me think that this is a whole class effort and not just Penny penning a letter about her love for the school lunch program. She says, we ask your government to honor its commitment to $200 million per year for 5 years to develop a national school food program. We ask that you start to invest in the school food we ask that you start to invest in school food in budget 24. Penny. And the other thing is honors spelt the American way. I thought that was funny. I don't know if any other eagle-eye people found any other discrepancies in this, but it sounds very coached. It sounds like here are the things we want you to hit, and you're going to be graded on this, and we're definitely not going to send this into the Prime Minister. Trudeau responds, Penny, I couldn't agree more. Food's pretty important to doing your best in school. We're going to make sure kids across the country have meals at school, whether they can bring their own or not, just like your school's program does. Thanks for the letter. I was going to say, the program that they've got at her school is provincial, probably. Like, it's not federal at all. So Justin Trudeau is just taking credit for something he has not done yet. Tracy says, just stop. 14 and 15-year-old teens don't write letters on lined paper, nor quote government policy points. Yeah, that's also very suspect. Where is the comm staff? Are they cranking this stuff out at 9:30 p.m. on a Thursday for kicks? Yeah, possibly. Here's what's going on in England, right? I like apples. I used to eat an apple a day, and now I'm eating grapes because apples, the expense of the apple is one thing. They got more expensive. It used to be like $3 for 3 pounds of apples, and whatever, $4 for 3 pounds of apples. I can deal with that. That's fine. And a pound or 3 pounds of apples, a bag of apples would get me through a week and a bit, right? And so I eat apples for my breakfast. But I like Royal Gala, and Royal Gala's skin. There's something about the skin. Maybe the skin's hard and the flesh inside gets soft, but the skin feels hard. And so sometimes you can bite into a Royal Gala and it's like mushy, and it's the worst thing in the world. It's absolutely the worst thing in the world. And so like you can import apples, and sometimes if you get like South African apples, they're pretty good. There's some other apples that you can get that are pretty good. But I went to England and I had some British apples, and my aunt was buying apples, and I told her this story about how like terrible the Gala apples are, and she went and got like 3 different kinds of apples. One of them was Gala, and it was the most delicious friggin' apples I've had in my life, and it was from England. I was like, where are these from? And she's like, England. I'm like, do you export these things? Not to Canada. Anyway, this guy's talking about the destruction of farmlands, and he's saying, we've been farming for 5 generations, started in the 50s, and we're done because we can't make any money. Jeremy Clarkson is saying the same thing. Oh, here we go.
I'm currently stood on one of the last remaining fields we have from our farms. We had 6 farms in the heart of Cheshire, all growing fruit and veg, about 100 acres each, so pretty substantial amount of fruit and veg grown. I'm stood in a field where once was a apple orchard. And we had 30 acres of apple orchards. They've all now been grubbed up. There are a few stragglers left, but nothing serious. And sadly, something that I was very proud of has come to an end. We've been going since the early 50s. I'd be the 4th generation apple grower, and it's gone. It's been gone a few years now, but yeah, it's sad. We're not the only ones. There's plenty of farmers disappearing all the time. I think the UK needs to wake up a little bit and figure out why the farmers are protesting and how they can help grow the future for our kids and their kids. No one's really thinking about that, are they?
No, because we're forced into a single generation time frame to deal with our lives. We don't, in the modern era, we are not encouraged to think about our parents. In fact, we're encouraged to dismiss our parents as, outdated, old-fashioned, not current, not modern. That's increasing, by the way. And we're not really supposed to feel like we have a hand in our kids' lives, in that they're supposed to grow up, go to school, find their own career, make their own way, grow their own family separate. It's not supposed to be one continual unit, right? And that's really weak. It's a very weak way to run your family, right? Whereas if you grow, like say I have a farm and my farm's 10 acres, okay? And I train my kid to be a farmer just like me. And my 10-acre farm makes $100,000 a year, let's say, like whatever. That's a great return on a farm, by the way. Like per acre, that's a huge return. Anyway, regardless of that, say my farm makes a damn good return. And then my kid inherits the farm and he does a good job too. And he grows it to 50 acres and we're still making a damn good return, right? And then his kids inherit the farm and they grow it too, and they're making even more, right? Like they diversify the farm and they're able to, like bring in other crops, and they do more and more and more. And it's a 5th and 6th generation farmer, and you build and you build and you build and you get better and you get better and you get better. And that's not what we're encouraged to do. We're encouraged to smash our families into a million pieces and spread out and live our lives and drink alcohol and play video games. Don't develop a real skill, by the way, play video games. This is a video game. Do a YouTube channel. It's a video game. Do a business. It's a video game. It's the same thing. And the better you get at that video game, right? You make money. and you can't wait to get up in the morning. And you get invested in things that aren't third party, that other people don't understand. Although if you have a business and your business is like widgets or whatever, sometimes you talk about the widget and nobody cares. And like it does become like a video game. You're like, oh, I'm on level, 986 and my character's blah, 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 blah. And people are like, what the heck is he talking about? Right. And when you get into the nitty gritty of business, like only a few people in the room are going to really understand what's going on, because the KPIs, the things that you're measuring your business by are so personal to you. Right. And do that instead. But we're not encouraged as a society. We're not encouraged to do that. We're encouraged to pour a drink. You're not working anymore. So, take time off. It's you time. But when you don't invest in yourself and you ingest alcohol and you waste time not building something that's going to return something like a video game, right? In very rare cases, it'll return something, but not all the time. Then you're weaker. And every day you do that, you incur cost, right? And become weaker. And I'm not saying don't play video games. Sometimes I play video games. Friday nights I play video games. And I do, and I love it and I enjoy it, right? But it's not something that consumes my life more than that. And I mean, while doing that, I remember one Friday night not too long ago, and I'll get back to the news in just a minute. One Friday night not too long ago, business was not going well. Something had happened and I was worried about it. I was preoccupied about it. And like, I look forward to Friday nights. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy my Friday nights out. I like to go play hockey and get crushed because I'm not very good at it apparently. Or the people I play against are much better than me. They care about it more. But I play a different game. But I was preoccupied and I was trying to play the game, but I was like, man, I got to check on this. And I was like checking on it and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not working. It's not working the way it should be working. And when I got home, I fixed it, right? And I figured out what was going on and I fixed it. So it's one of those things that if you invest in yourself and if you invest in your family, if you build something and really build it, then you can have success like becoming a level 60 character in World of Warcraft. Like, that's successful, right? Super successful. Okay. Gov.exe, let's talk about a grab bag of governance. This is all the government being out of touch, lying to people in hopes that they're not noticing that the government hates them and that they're just lying liars. Gov.exe says, Anita Anand says she's not worried at all about how bad the polling numbers are, and doesn't really care what Canadians want. Her plan is to keep stuffing WEF socialist policies down our throats. We don't want your garbage government policies, and we want you all arrested for treason. Yes. Yes, exactly. Here is Anita Anand.
You're 20 points behind in the polls. You started out sitting 14 points behind. What are you going to do this summer to turn things around for the party?
Well, the goals are clearly laid out in Budget 2024. We're going to continue to work for Canadians and to alleviate the pressures that they are feeling because of rising prices and the high cost of living.
But no matter what you've done so far, it doesn't seem to be
Actually,
landing.
we're not focused on the polls. We're focused on the fact that we need to continue to put forward dental care, pharmacare, housing supports for families and students. These are all measures that are going to actually ameliorate the situation that
Ameliorate the situation? Oh, I don't want to talk to those anybody who doesn't understand what the word ameliorate means. Get out of here, Anita Anand. Come on. This is the Tourism Minister Soraya Martinez Ferrada? I'm adding an N. It felt like an N belonged in there. Blames far-right populism when asked why Canadians aren't listening to the Trudeau government. No, it's the far-right populists. That's the reason. Oh, okay. Here she is.
I think it's because Canadians aren't listening to what your government is putting forward right now. It's not hitting Canadians.
I think what you see right now, and it's not only in Canada, everywhere in the world, there is a rise of the far-right populism because people feel that, life is hard. And right now, they maybe have more money working hard, but living costs are high. And, the struggle they have on the everyday life, it is difficult. And so I feel that, that frustration, of course, and we see it everywhere, in Argentina, in Italy, in Europe, and in the States.
Have you been in Argentina recently?
Are you saying that it's far right?
What I'm talking about is populism. What I'm talking about is people right now are struggling, and when they struggle, well, give me easy solutions to complex problems, and it is something that is difficult to.
An easy solution to the housing crisis is to stop bringing in millions of people a year that we can't house. Like, it's a simple solution. It's not hard. It's not complicated. They're not our responsibility in the first place. What the heck is she talking? Life is hard, so people are looking for easy solutions, and right-wing populists offer easy solutions. The solutions are just easy. You're just ideologically aligned with the United Nations, and you want power. You want to steal my tax dollars, to redistribute my tax dollars to poor foreigners in Canada, and anybody who isn't on board with that is an alt-right populist. And I just completely disagree. These people are insane. These people are out of touch with reality, but also very dangerous because they're in charge of policy. Holy smoke. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful